Last week, President Donald Trump fired State Department Inspector General Steve Linick, and now we may have a reason why. Now, this is according to sources. Linick was not fired. Was fired not long after he had launched a probe into a potentially illegal arms sales to Saudi Arabia. So now Saudi Arabia, of course, is quote unquote considered our ally, but not much of an ally, considering what they do, their human rights abuses, their record. Not only that, but the murder of a certain journalist in Turkey. Yeah, there's some issues, and yet Donald Trump still seems really intent on trying to sell Mohammed Bonesaw Salman American weapons that, of course, are going to be used in Yemen. Now, Congress, Congress, they tried to stop the arms sales after Khashoggi was killed, but they failed to do so because Trump vetoed both attempts, and then the Senate didn't have the required number of senators to override that veto. And so we're still actually trying to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia. In fact, Trump used the Arms Export Control Act to sell $8 billion worth of weapons to the Saudis. So that's what Linick was looking into. He was looking into whether Trump could use the Arms Export Control Act to sell these weapons. All right. So now the two sources tell NBC News' Josh Letterman that Linick was also investigating the use of the emergency declaration over objections of Congress at the time he was fired. Aides for lawmakers serving on the House Foreign Affairs Committee tell the Washington Post's Greg Sargent that the investigation into the Saudi arms sales have been mostly completed, although there's not a timetable for when the results would have been made public. So look, he was looking into this and mostly had the investigation done for, but we don't know what it's going to reveal. Now, the State Department does, as they've been briefed on Linick's conclusions. Now, there's a couple possibilities, right, that you're going to get from this. One, that Trump abuses authority in order to try to sell weapons to his buddy, Bonesaw Salman. And then, of course, there's the other possibility is that he didn't exceed his authority and that he had the authority to do so under the Arms Export Control Act. I mean, those are really the two options that I see here. If there's a third, I'd love to know. Now, seeing how Linick was fired as a result of this investigation, I'm wondering if that is because that investigation found that, oh, hey, it looks like it's not legal. I don't know. That's a speculation, really, and all we can do without the actual investigation in front of us or the results of that investigation is just going to be speculation. Now, Linick could come forward if he's allowed to do so. So the reason this is important, of course, it has to do with separation of powers, what the president is and is not allowed to do with the consent of Congress. Trying to prevent these arms from being sold to Saudi Arabia, especially after the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. He was a journalist for the Washington Post. He was murdered in the consulate in Turkey. Just flat out murdered and dismembered by the Saudi regime. And yet, this is why Congress wanted to not sell them weapons, because they wanted Salman to have some sort of, to face some sort of consequence for his government doing this. Now, Salman said, hey, man, I didn't do this. I didn't order this. Not my fault. We're going to find the people responsible. Well, I would advise him to look into a mirror because he's definitely responsible. Not only did he likely order the death of Khashoggi, but he's also been conducting a genocide against Yemen using our weapons. But Trump wants to keep this going because he's got financial interests. In fact, back in 2016, he outlined his relationship with the Saudis. He says, Saudi Arabia, I like the Saudis. I make a lot of money with them. They buy all sorts of my stuff, all kinds of toys from Trump. They pay me millions and hundreds of millions. That's not wrong. He has made lots and lots of money up to Saudis. Why would he ruin that by actually being president? I mean, no, it's me first, and then everything else. I don't care about innocent people in Yemen. Oh, journalists. I don't care about dead journalists. Ooh, media is the enemy of the people. This sociopath is allowed to drive our foreign policy. And you know what? I suppose it's a good thing that he runs hotels and isn't a defense contractor, or else we'd be in 100 wars right now. Because it would make him money. And so we're lucky that he runs crappy hotels. But no, what he's doing is he's coddling dictators. He's selling them weapons so that I think later on he can cash in. Maybe by, I don't know, opening new hotels or just continuing to get money from the Saudis who, you know, buy his hotel rooms or his condos or whatever. And maybe Linnick got in the way of that, or maybe Trump just didn't like the fact that Linnick was doing an investigation on him. I don't know yet, but it sure does seem suspicious. And at this point, I really wouldn't put anything past him. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.